possibility that the Earth contains massive underground caves, caverns, that it's hollow or at least partially hollow, that these regions are accessible through passages at the poles, and that ancient secret breakaway civilizations flourish within them. This has renewed people's interest in a subject that's still largely considered, by the media at least, to be very taboo. And polar expeditions and battles like Operation Highjump still remain classified. And it's just shrouded in secrecy for decades now. But scientific revelations are coming out, they validate the rumors, and these covert events and their implications are finally being exposed. And the Earth might actually have entire civilizations living underground that we, the public, now are just being made aware of.
It is intended for the entertainment and instruction of broad-minded adults only, and should not be played to or sold to minors under any circumstances whatsoever. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the floating pie pan in the sky at Groom Lake Analog Recordings. Welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. Now here's your host, Samba.
Heyo, welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. Over here in the beautiful Tucson, Arizona, I am your host,
Samba.
There we go, my friends. Thank you for tuning into the show tonight. We're talking about Operation Highjump and the Hollow Earth. It sounds so nice, doesn't it? The Hollow Earth, there's just nothing in it. It's just hollow. It's like an egg without the shit inside, you know, it's just the shell. Anyway, phone number for the show is 520-704-7820. If you'd like to call in at 9:30, opening up the phone lines for everybody for open lines. 9:30 is your time, so please check back in at 9:30 if you want to give Samba a call over here. I'm floating in space all by myself. No producer in sight. They are off in nomad land, just kind of doing their thing. I'll see them later. They'll produce me later, but for now, it's just a lone Samba in here, floating through space. Listen. Nothing there. Anyway, so let's get started tonight with some juicy headlines over here on Tarantula's Dream TV. Some local headlines tonight, just local stuff. First one's coming from Tucson.com. Pima County supervisors ask state to reconsider federal vaccine site in Tucson. The Pima County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously Wednesday to request the state to reconsider allowing a federally sponsored vaccination center in the county. If Governor Doug Ducey rejects the offer from the Federal Emergency Management Agency again, the board will work with its congressional delegation to make the county the sponsoring agent of the federal vaccine site and implement it without the state's approval. County staff met with state and federal officials to discuss the addition of a FEMA-run point of distribution, or pod, on March 17th. Ducey and Dr. Kara Christ, or I like to call her Dr. Kara Christ, but I guess it's Christ, State Health Department Director, turned down the offer over concerns the federal vaccination center would drain state resources without allowing it proper oversight and possible siphon of vaccines from the state's total allocation. Tammy Luttrell, the FEMA administrator for Region 9, wrote a letter to Christ on March 20th clarifying the state's concerns were unfounded. She said the vaccine supplying a federal vaccination center wouldn't draw from the state's allocation and operations would be carried out collaboratively. So maybe we'll get another pod, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, say what you will about how the vaccinations have been going so far. How Arizona's handled COVID, it hasn't been good. You maybe have a different opinion than myself, but, you know, Doug Ducey, Kara Christ, really, they didn't knock it out of the park. They knocked it maybe like a couple feet from the base. Someone picked up the ball and just tapped them real quick. You're out, you know. It was terrible. honestly, our handling of COVID has been terrible. So, I'm going to go with FEMA on this one. I'm assuming they know what they're talking about. It won't siphon off our available vaccine allotment. They'll have their own, and we'll just get more people vaccinated. This is crazy. We're here. Vaccinations are here. Everyone can get them now. Everyone eligible, which is most people at this point. And so really, if we need the help, we should take the help. And our next headline is for all my skaters out there, all my rockers out there. This is from kgun9.com. Tucson Mayor and the council approved new skate park. Tucson Mayor Regina Romero and City Council voted Tuesday to approve a new skate park. The idea for the new skate park came from skaters themselves. They got any skaters on the air listening right now? This is all because of you. You guys, y'all did this, Council members say those skaters first approached them with the idea more than 4 years ago. Then the Arizona Department of Transportation gave a preliminary approval for the project, and the group was able to gather some grants to help pay for the park. The park will sit under Interstate 10 at Cushing Street. I'm not 100% sure exactly where the park's going to be. Under Interstate 10 at Cushing Street? So y'all are going to be skating underneath I-10 while a bunch of cars are speeding above your heads? I don't know. They got some half pipes underneath I-10 coming your way. So skaters, thank you for doing this. You're really serving the community over here, just getting new skate parks built. Now, before we move on to some of the juice, the meat, the juice, there's one more bit of house cleaning I want to do over here. So many people have probably already seen on Instagram if you're a Tucson local, but La Andita, the historic La Andita over on 4th Avenue, is in a little bit of a jam, a little bit of a pickle right here. So they posted on Instagram, on their Facebook, all over social media. They said, help save La Andita of the historic 4th Avenue. In August, we found out that our neighbors will be expanding. In 1 month, we are being pushed out of our building by this expansion. Due to the pandemic, we have not been able to save funds to move to a new building, and our legacy is at great risk from being destroyed. We want our children and their children to be able to give the gift of true Tucson elders cuisine. Our food and restaurant is the food of this land's elders, Tohono O'odham and Mexican. It has lasted through tough times before, and we humbly ask that you help save it for the future generations to come. So please, if you have any extra funds, a little bit of extra money, there is a GoFundMe link in the Tarantulas Dream TV profile. Please click on that and donate. You can find their links over on Facebook and on their personal Instagrams, and please share it as well. This restaurant is absolutely delicious, absolutely fantastic. The owners, the cooks, everyone who is a part of La Andita are absolutely fantastic people. I've had many great memories and just great times with family and friends over on 4th Avenue at La Andita. So I'd be very sad to see it not being able to continue in a new location. It doesn't look like they have any control over the neighbors expanding, but I'm hoping they'll be able to find a new location and be able to enjoy their food again. So let's get into this juicy meat over here. Let's get into the succulent, the juice, the Wagyu beef, just the absolutely melt in your mouth, greasy hands. Your burger buns are just soaked to the bone. You put it in a to-go container and you open it up and it's just wafting full of grease. The juiciest, most succulent night meat available. Here's the meat of the night. I kind of butchered that intro. Sorry about that. I don't know. I had it and then I lost it. But actually, before I get into the meat tonight, let me check these comments. Looks like I had a few blown up over here. 168 RPM, bunt, sacrifice out. Yes, Deucey, Christ, you bunted it. Boom, you're done. And then you gave me some hand signs over there. So it looks like you were one of the ones maybe who championed this new skate park. Lobo Yolo, hello there, Lobo Yolo. Shade. Was I throwing shade towards the skaters or towards I-10? Or who was I throwing shade? Or was it just the Deucey stuff? Because I'll throw shade at Deucey all day. I don't even consider that shade. That's just facts. And Leonza AZ. Hello there, Leonza. Look at you. You're here for the night meat. You're just my number one night meat fan over here, which I love personally. Not necessarily the meat of the night, but I love that you're a fan of the meat of the night, and I'll keep doing it. So yeah, let's get into some of this juice over here. We're talking Operation Highjump and the Hollow Earth. Now, this particular episode or this particular topic is going to be split up into two different episodes. Maybe not necessarily back to back. This next episode might come a few weeks later down the line. But there's just so much to cover when it comes to the Hollow Earth conspiracy and what what is in the hollow earth, what it is, what it looks like. There's different ways to get there. There's different theories on what it actually looks like and how it functions. And so, we're not going to have time for that. But we are going to have time to get into a particular mission, and that's Operation Highjump. Now, one of the main characters, one of the main story, the players of the story over here is a person by the name of Richard E. Byrd. Now, this is from the Inner Earth, My Secret Diary. Now, this is apparently and we'll get into this a little bit later, a diary that was kept by Richard E. Byrd. He said, "I must write this diary in secrecy and obscurity. It concerns my Arctic flight of the 19th day of February in the year of 1947. There comes a time when the rationality of men must fade into insignificance, and one must accept the inevitability of the truth. I am not at liberty to discuss the following documentation at this writing. Perhaps it shall never see the light of public scrutiny, but I must do my duty and record here for all to read one day. In a world of greed and exploitation of certain, mankind can no longer suppress that which is truth." So he wrote that. I felt like that was a good little introduction to kind of the vibe that Richard E. Byrd was going to be getting into when it comes to Operation Highjump. Now I'll throw up a little slideshow of our boy over here, Richard Byrd, because there he is. It kind of gives you a little more of a sense of who's talking, who the man himself, the explorer, the legend over here, Richard E. Byrd. Now, this is from wikipedia.org. Richard E. Berg was an American naval officer and explorer. He was a recipient of the Medal of Honor, the highest honor for valor given by the United States, and was a pioneering American aviator, polar explorer, and organizer of polar logistics. Aircraft flights in which he served as a navigator and expedition leader crossed the Atlantic Ocean, a segment of the Arctic Ocean, and a segment of the Antarctic Plateau. Byrd claimed that his expeditions had been the first to reach both the North Pole and the South Pole by air. His claim to have reached the North Pole is disputed, however. He is also known for discovering Mount Sidley, the largest dormant volcano in Antarctica. Now, Admiral Byrd led many expeditions into the Arctic regions of the globe, becoming the youngest admiral in the history of the United States Navy. His explorations are well documented and numerous, but we'll be focusing on one mission of particular importance and speculation within the conspiracy and even the flat Earth community, Operation Highjump. Now, what was Operation Highjump? Now, Operation Highjump was officially known as the United States Navy Antarctic Development Program of 1946 through 1947. Now, this operation was led by Admiral Byrd to establish an American research base in Antarctica called Little America No. 4. Now, there was a handful of different Antarctic bases, and they were all dubbed Little America. So this was number 4, was the one that was being established by Operation Highjump. Now, the official objectives, according to Navy reports, were as follows, and these are all from Wikipedia. Number 1, training personnel and testing equipment in frigid conditions. Number 2, consolidating and extending the United States' sovereignty over the largest practical area of the Antarctic continent, or publicly denied as a goal even before the expedition ended, apparently. Number 3, determining the feasibility of establishing, maintaining, and utilizing bases in the Antarctic and investigating possible base sites. Number 4, developing techniques for establishing, maintaining, and utilizing air bases on ice, with particular attention to later applicability of such techniques to operations in interior Greenland, where conditions are comparable to those in the Antarctic. Number 5, amplifying existing stores of knowledge of electromagnetic, geological, geographic, hydrographic, and meteorological propagation conditions in the area. And number 6, supplementary objectives of the Nanook expedition, a smaller equivalent conducted off eastern Greenland. So pretty boilerplate stuff, not particularly exciting, at least in regards to the conspiracy world. If you're into exploration, if you're into kind of the unknown and exploring, then this all sounds probably pretty fun. Now, the expedition was ultimately a success with the construction of Little America No. 4 in 1947. The operation was terminated soon after, however, due to, according to the Navy, harsh weather and the onset of winter. Now, the details of the mission are fairly boilerplate and honestly a little boring, but the rumors surrounding what was seen during the mission and the implications of those sightings are where the real night meat lies. Now, I'm going to get rid of our little slideshow of Admiral Byrd over here because I think we all kind of got a feel for what he looks like. Now, we're going to get back into Admiral Byrd's diary, because that's where this really all stems from, the supposed adventures of Admiral Byrd. Now, there seems to exist among conspiracy circles a short but detailed copy of what is supposedly a secret diary kept by Byrd during Operation Highjump. Now, this is all an excerpt from the diary, and this particular one is from March 11th, 1947. I have just attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon. I have stated fully my discovery and the message from the master. All is duly recorded. The president has been advised. I am now detained for several hours, 6 hours, 39 minutes to be exact. I am interviewed intently by top security forces and a medical team. It was an ordeal. I am placed under strict control via the national security provisions of this United States of America. I am ordered to remain silent in regard to all that I have learned on the behalf of humanity. Incredible. I am reminded that I am a military man and I must obey orders. Now, this supposed diary recalls the story of what Admiral Byrd saw as he flew over Antarctica. Now, initially, the details of this diary are fairly standard as Byrd details the technical details of the flight. And this is a quote from the diary. It says, "All preparations are complete for our flight northward, and we are airborne with full fuel tanks at 6:10 hours. Now, at 6:20 hours, fuel mixture on starboard engine seems too rich. Adjustment made, and Pratt Whitneys are running smoothly." I don't know what Pratt Whitneys are. And then 07:30 hours, radio check with base camp, all is well, and radio reception is normal. Now, around 09:49 hours, Byrd remarks that of the first sighting of mountains. They are mountains and consisting of a small range that I have never seen before. At around 1,000 hours and beyond, the diary begins to get saucy. Now, Byrd writes, "We are crossing over the small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning. The gyroscope is oscillating back and forth." At 10:05 hours, I alter altitude to 1,400 feet and execute a sharp left turn to better examine the valley below. It is green with either moss or a type of tight-knit grass. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No! It looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible. Yet there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp. At 10:30 hours, encountering more rolling green hills now. The external temperature indicator reads 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Continuing on our heading now. Navigation instruments seem normal. I am puzzled over their actions. Attempt to contact base camp. Radio is not functioning. At 11:30 hours, countryside below is more level and normal, if I may use that word. Ahead, we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible. Aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God. Off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings on them. It is a type of swastika. This is fantastic. Where are we? What has happened? I tug at the controls again. They will not respond. We are caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. Now, he does go on to describe the ship a little bit as what is it called? A flugelrad. Now, I do have another little slideshow of what rumored kind of interpretations of what flugelrads are, what he probably saw what the disc looked like. And so I'm going to have that playing over me while I kind of dive a little deeper into this diary entry. Now, from here until the end of this section of the diary, Byrd tells the story of meeting what is dubbed as the Master, the leader of Ariani or Agartha, the inner world of the Earth, or the inner Earth. Byrd recalls hearing a voice as his plane descended into Agartha, exclaiming, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral. You are in good hands." Now, the voice has been described as sounding slightly Nordic or Germanic. So there you go. It sounds a little pretty white. I guess I'll just say that, Nordic or Germanic. Now, ultimately, the conversation between Byrd and the Master is fairly well-tread territory amongst conspiracy theorists and ufologists who believe that otherworldly beings, either from space or, in this case, the inner Earth, are trying to warn us in some cases or even protect us from destroying ourselves. In this case, the Master explains that their race began to take notice of us more intently after the U.S. dropped atomic bombs over the Japanese cities of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Now, the Master apparently said, "Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines, or the flugelrads, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is, of course, past history now, my dear Admiral. But I must continue on. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must. For you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be witness here that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral." Now, Byrd was summoned to meet the Master as he is a respected and upright member of the human race, being tasked with delivering the message of the Agartha or the Ariani to his superiors and ultimately humanity at large. Now, unfortunately, the Master also claims that humans are destined to destroy themselves versus giving up some of their power, saying, "Yes, my son, the dark ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall, but I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures, and they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again to help revive your culture and your race. Perhaps by then you will have learned the futility of war and its strife, and after that time, certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race to begin anew. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message." Now, after this meeting, Byrd is apparently released back to his aircraft, where he flies back to base camp. He is then interrogated by the Pentagon and told to keep quiet about all he saw and encountered while flying over Antarctica. Now, the story and supposed diary have not been authenticated in any way, shape, or form. There's no proof that this diary exists other than it being online and kind of being shared amongst conspiracy theorists and ufologists and people just generally interested in the conspiracies around what's going on and what potentially could be in Antarctica. So there's no proof that any of this has happened or is true at all. But this particular story does raise some interesting questions, especially after some interesting quotes from Byrd after the expedition. Now, this is true. Now, Byrd was interviewed by Lee Van Atta of the International News Service in an article appearing in the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio in 1947. It says, Admiral Richard E. Byrd warned today that the United States should adopt measures of protection against the possibility of an invasion of the country by hostile planes coming from the polar regions. The Admiral explained that he was not trying to scare anyone, but the cruel reality is that in case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles. This statement was made as part of a recapitulation of his own polar experience in an exclusive interview with the International News Service. Talking about the recent completed expedition, Byrd said that the most important result of his observations and discoveries is the potential effect that they have in relation to the security of the United States. The fantastic speed with which the world is shrinking, recalled the admiral, is one of the most important lessons learned during his recent Antarctic exploration. I have to warn my compatriots that the time has ended when we are able to take refuge in our isolation and rely on the certainty that the distances, the oceans, and the poles were a guarantee of safety. Now, some have focused on the line the United States could be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles, claiming it is a subtle nod to the flying craft found while in Antarctica. Now, some translations of the article have claimed that the actual quote was, "The admiral further stated that he didn't want to frighten anyone unduly, but that it was a bitter reality that in case of a new war, the continental United States would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds," which is an entirely different translation altogether. Now, this story ties together many different theories in regards to the Hollow Earth, including what the race of Hollow Earth inhabitants looked like, the entrance, as well as a potential Nazi involvement. Now it is 9:28, it's almost the bottom of the hour, so I'm going to take a little break over here, drink a little delicious space water, but we have a new Spumoni video. What you think about with Spumoni? This one's a little spicy. It's a little X-rated, if you will, so if there's any children watching the stream right now, any young ones, maybe cover their ears, cover their eyes, as Spumoni gets a little blue over here, but this is what you're thinking about with Spumoni over here on TarantulasDreamTV.
Hello, my cosmic cashews. Spumoni here, cruising around time and space, ready to answer your questions on anything, and I mean anything. Tonight's question comes from Mary Ann Peebles. She says,
"Hi there, Spumoni. This is Mary Ann Peebles. Just calling you, asking you a quick question. So I was reading the latest issue of Cosmo magazine down at the beauty salon, and it had an article about the #1 trick to get the love juices flowing in your boudoir. Anyway, the trick was you salt your partner's nipples. You pickle your partner's nipples in bed, and it is supposed to just let the love juice flow. Well, I did it to my husband, Jerry, and I swear he was angrier than a hornet at a crawdad festival. I tell you what, so I was just curious if you had any tips for us lowly humans out here in the sticks. Anyway, love to hear from you. Bye.
"Oh my, thank you for that interesting and spicy question, Mary Ann. First off, my species doesn't have what you would call relations with each other. We reproduce by focusing energy into what you would say is jelly bean-like containers, small and multicolored. Once the jelly bean eggs have been infused with Spumoni energy, they are cracked open into a custom Barnacle Nebula manufactured frying pan, cooked until Spumoni side up, and then left in the nebula's sun for 3 days until ready. In regards to a love tip, I think the pickling is a good idea. Sounds like Jerry just needs to open his mind to some of that good pickle passion."
There you go. There was another episode of What You Thinking About with Spumoni over here on Tarantulas Dream TV, answering a question by, I guess, a listener, a fan of the show, Mary Ann Peebles. Mary Ann, if you're listening, I hope that you were able to fix what was going on with you and your husband, Jerry, that if the pickle passion was working out for y'all, or if it wasn't working out, you figured something out to connect y'all on a more a physical, loving way. So I hope that answer from old Spumoni really helped you out. But anyways, it is the bottom of the hour over here on Tarantulas Dream TV, and it is open lines. Phone number for the show, 520-704-7820 if you'd like to talk to old Samba over here. Whether you have a pickle passion question of your own, a sex tip for Mary Ann Peebles, or if you just want to talk about the Hollow Earth, what we're actually talking about tonight. Now, before we get back into this delicious night meat, I want to take a look at the comments over here and see what's going on. Lobo Yolo, shade for the skaters. Well, hey, I love my skateboard friends. There was no shade for them. So if anyone on the air is a skater, I'm sorry, I wasn't throwing shade your way. Please don't don't hit me with your skateboard. Hello there, Trial and Error Collective. Glad to see you. Leonza AZ, Pratt and Whitney make airplane engines. Oh, you know what? There you go. That sounds about right. Trial and Error Collective. Those look wild. Yes, the ships that apparently were being seen do look pretty wild. So. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, this kind of correlates with the time, with 1947 being also the year that the Roswell crash happened. So, I don't know. Maybe those ships were from the inner Earth, and maybe they're not really aliens. They're just inner Earth people. Let's see what the guy says. Trial and Error Club, sexy Spumoni time. Yes, I always love that sexy Spumoni time over here, and I'm glad that he was probably able to help Mary Ann Peebles. 160 RPM, Spumone Zone, Spumoni. Dang, 160 RPM. That's getting X-rated over here. Celia, hello there, Celia. Literal shade. Yes, actually, there you go. Literal shade. Leonza AZ, shade under the overpass. Yeah, literal shade. There you go. See, again, I've explained this. I've explained this before on past streams, that a lot of the comments come in delayed over here, and so a lot of times I'll say something and then you'll comment, and then I just have like no clue what you're talking about, because like it's so delayed. So I'm sorry if I'm not as clueless as I seem over here. It's just, when it comes to it's not a 1-to-1 ratio over here between when I say something and when the comments roll in, and then I just look like a damn fool. So anyway, yes, literal shade for the skaters. I'm hoping that you don't burn up this summer as you skate under I-10 with the new skate park. But let's get into this delicious continued night meat over here, and let's get into one of my least favorite conspiracy groups over here, and they've come up a number of times as they are such an interesting group, in the sense that they did have a lot of occult ties, and I think a lot of conspiracy theorists just find them very fascinating. But we're going to get into some of the Nazis. We're going to talk about Nazis, Antarctica, and New Swabia, which I have mentioned before in an earlier episode, but we're going to dive a little deeper into that. Now, during this time, Nazi forces were trying to establish a base on Antarctica as well, mainly set up as a whaling station to acquire whale fat or oil, which apparently was a very important raw material for the production of margarine and soap in Germany at the time, as well as for a potential naval base. So they were trying to form a base on Antarctica to get that sweet blubber, as well as a naval base. So, about the same thing. Now, Germany laid claim to a portion of Antarctica in 1939. This area, dubbed New Schwabenland, or New Swabia, did exist, but was reportedly only a temporary base. Germany reportedly never occupied the territory, although, and this is from Wikipedia, it is well documented that Germany issued a decree about the establishment of a German Antarctic sector called New Swabia after the expedition's return in August of 1939. So even though they claimed that the base was never actually established or built, it was just sort of, they traveled there and they had plopped down some swastika flags and kind of planned to use it. It was only temporary and was never really used, although there is a decree about it. So, I don't know if you can really trust the Nazis. Now, in 1945, the area was supposedly abandoned. So by 1945, apparently they had kind of they didn't want anything to do with New Swabia. Now, conspiracies regarding New Swabia have also circulated for years, including it being the location of a secret Nazi base known as Base 211. Now, this is from scarenormal.com. The cold and distant land was investigated in detail by the German Antarctic expedition, which discovered the oddities of this place. Here, researchers discovered sources of warm water and green in the field, where everything was to be frozen. These were areas where the presence of green vegetation was supported by the work of geothermal sources. So apparently in this conspiracy, when it comes to Base 211, they also found areas that had greenery, had things that weren't supposed to be able to survive and live in such a cold place. But they found areas that were green and even had warm water. And apparently it said it was supported by geothermal sources, so like hot springs almost. Now, the most fascinating quote about Antarctica and New Schwabenland, or New Swabia, comes from Deutsch Admiral Karl Donitz, who said, "The Deutsch fleet is proud to have built an impregnable fortress for the Führer on another area of the earth." So apparently they were able to build what they dub an impregnable fortress for Hitler and the Nazis. Now, the Nazi base 211 was indeed built, according to this article. It is situated inside a small mountain range without any ice in the Mühlig-Hoffmann Mountains in New Schwabenland. Although many historians have denied the presence of Station 211 in the Antarctic, suggesting that there was no facts of such allegations. Others are sure that everything on the surface of the frozen ground is just a cover. Hitler's true refuge is hidden under the ice and will never be found. Again, theories surrounding what has been found in Antarctica mention finding green vegetation and running water suitable for life on the frozen continent. Now, according to the website ancientcode.com, there appears to be a letter written by Karl Unger, who was aboard the German U-boat 209, commanded by Heinrich Broda, in which he states that the crew had reached the interior of the Earth and that they did not consider coming back. Now, I do have this letter over here. Let me pull up the little slideshow of the letter. It might be a little small for you to read, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull up the letter over here as well and read it for you. And so you can kind of... hopefully I can read this as well, because it is a little small over here. But the copy is fairly high def, which is honestly a little suspect. But this is apparently the letter that describes going into the inner Earth. It was dated March 2nd of 1985, which I don't really know how that works out. But it says, Mr. Woodard, your interesting telephone conversation concerning your proposed effort to penetrate the inner realms is hopefully successful. The enclosed photocopy is from an old comrade. I received it after the war. To clarify, the U-209 was assigned one of the strangest missions of the entire war. She was directed to proceed in an attempt to clarify the actual existence of inner Earth. Furnished with charts and directions by Dr. Karl Hofshauer, the U-209 was to proceed to a certain latitude and longitude, there to enter a giant undersea cavern with a current of about 6 knots, there to let the U-boats be carried downward and onward. The U-209 was commanded by Colonel Heinrich Broda, a veteran officer of fidelity. You see, there were many in the Third Reich that believed this theory of an existing inner realm. Among those aboard the U-209 was an old friend, one Karl Unger. I received his communication sometime after the war had ended. I know it is genuine, as I know his handwriting very well. Now, this says the approximate English translation of Karl's letter is as follows. Dear old comrade, this news will be a surprise for you. The U-209 Unterseeboot made it. The Earth is hollow. Dr. Haushofer and Hess were right. The whole crew is well, but they cannot come back. We are no prisoners. I am sure this news will reach you. It is the last connection of the U-boat 209. We will meet again, comrade. I am worried for everyone who has to spend his life on the surface of the earth since the Führer is gone. God bless our Germany always, with hearty greetings. So there you go. That is apparently the letter that was written that described a U-boat finding the inner Earth and not wanting to come back. They just wanted to stay there, apparently. Now let me get rid of this letter over here. There we go. Now, along with that, alleged leaked German maps and details describing how to get to the entrance of the hollow Earth have surfaced online, throwing another weird wrench into the conspiracy machine. Now, I do have a little slideshow of what are apparently German maps to get into the hollow Earth. So I'm going to leave those playing while I continue going over here about Base 211. Now, Base 211 is rumored to be the location of several Nazi aircraft and occult technology involving the Vril or the Thule Society, which is something that I might cover in a later episode, but we're not going to get too deep into the Vril or the Thule Society. But I have mentioned them in the past when it comes to the occult beginnings of our space program. So if you remember hearing Vril or Thule Society, it's probably from that episode. Now, some of which have claimed to have attacked Richard Byrd during Operation Highjump in a fantastic and completely 180-degree turn away from what was written in Byrd's diary. Now, this is a story that has been circulating online for a while. I remember hearing this a number of years ago. I remember hearing about what has been dubbed the battle in Antarctica. Excuse me. Now, this is from exopolitics.org. Now, after the Soviet collapse in 1999, the KGB released previously classified files that cast light on the mysterious Byrd-led naval expedition to Antarctica. A 2006 Russian documentary, recently translated, made public for the first time a 1947 secret Soviet intelligence report commissioned by Joseph Stalin of Task 68's mission to Antarctica. The intelligence report, gathered from Soviet spies embedded in the U.S., revealed that the U.S. Navy had sent the military expedition to find and destroy a hidden Nazi base. On the way, they encountered a mysterious UFO force that attacked the military expedition, destroying several ships and a significant number of planes. Now, apparently Task 68 was the supposed name for the naval component of Operation Highjump. Now, this whole little section over here pretty much refutes what is the official explanation for Highjump, that it was just there to kind of establish a base in Antarctica for study, for training. It was pretty boring, just wanted to have a base in Antarctica. Well, apparently, according to what is being said as a KGB leaked classified file that was commissioned by Joseph Stalin, apparently, Operation Highjump was actually a U.S. mission to find and destroy a Nazi base, most likely New Swabia or or Base 211. So let's continue. Now, in the Soviet intelligence report, never before known testimony by two U.S. Navy servicemen with Operation Highjump was revealed. A recent article in New Dawn by Frank Joseph gives a detailed analysis of the two eyewitness accounts, only the latter of which was mentioned in the 2006 Russian documentary. John P. Schweitzok, a radioman stationed on the USS Bronson, gave testimony of how UFOs appear dramatically out of the ocean depths. Now, on January 17th, 1947, at 0700 hours, Schweitzok said, "I and my shipmates in the pilot house port side observed for several minutes the bright lights that ascended about 45 degrees into the sky very quickly. We couldn't ID the lights because our radar was limited to 250 miles in a straight line. Over the next several weeks, according to the Soviet report, the UFOs flew closer over the U.S. naval flotilla, which fired on the UFOs, which did retaliate with deadly effects. According to Lieutenant John Sayerson, a flying boat pilot, the thing shot vertically out of the water at tremendous velocity, as though pursued by the devil, and flew between the masts of the ship at such a high speed that the radio antenna oscillated back and forth in its turbulence. An aircraft, a Martin flying boat from the Currituck that took off just a few moments later, was struck with an unknown type of ray from the object and almost instantly crashed into the sea near our vessel. About 10 miles away, the torpedo boat Maddox burst into flames and began to sink. Having personally witnessed this attack by the object that flew out of the sea, all I can say is it was frightening." Now, according to Navy reports, there never was a torpedo boat named Maddox in the U.S. Navy. However, according to New Dawn author Frank Joseph, a USS Maddox was indeed sunk by enemy action, but 5 years earlier by a German dive bomber during the Allied invasion of Sicily. Actually, there were at least 3 American destroyers known by that name, the DD-168, DD-622, and DD-731, all of them contemporaneous. The U.S. Navy has long been notorious for falsifying the identity of its ships and rewriting their histories if they embarrass official policy. So, too, the Maddox cited by Soviet espionage was similarly consigned to the official memory hole. So, according to him, there was a boat called the Maddox. The destructive technology used by the UFOs in the Soviet intelligence report was not something that had been developed by the defeated Nazis, who had only shortly before been forced to retreat to the South Atlantic. It appears the UFOs were not intent on destroying Task Force 68, but forcing it to turn back. Were the UFOs protecting the retreating Nazis and or their presence in Antarctica? Was the Stalin-era report disinformation deliberately fed to Soviet authorities by U.S. intelligence? What is the most likely answer is that the Soviet-era report released in the 2006 Russian documentary was substantially correct. This suggests that Admiral Byrd's initial press report was accurate. A new enemy that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds had emerged. Now, attached to the comments of this article is another comment from a user named Eric Willoughby, and it was written about 2 years ago, and this is his full comment, as I found it fairly interesting. In 2014, I had a chance encounter with a Navy veteran that was serving on board one of those ships involved with Operation Highjump. My new wife and I were temporarily displaced from a home after having to give everything up to take care of her dying mother. We spent nearly a year living out of a hotel room in a small town in North Carolina. An old man was staying in the room next door to us, who was waiting for his home to be repaired from a recent fire that broke out. One afternoon, as I was sitting outside having a smoke, this old man came out to get some fresh air, wearing his Navy veteran's hat with service pins attached to it. I made mention of his hat and thanked him for his service. That's when things got interesting. He stated in these particular words that he served in the expedition to the Antarctic. At this time, I had just foredone learning about and extensively researching this piece of history and about Admiral Byrd's diary about this UFO encounter and the race of beings he met. I knew better than to start blurting out about UFOs and Nazi bases, so I approached him in the ignorant inquiring citizen's manner, hoping he would give some inside details on his own accord, even if it was a government-manufactured account. I just wanted to see his reaction and ready his body language. I went on to respond with, "Oh, Operation Highjump. Wow, what was that like?" Those two questions got me much more than I had ever bargained for. The look and body reaction that the old man responded with sent chills down my spine. It was several emotional looks that happened simultaneously. His eyes got wide as I said, "Operation Highjump," as if saying, "How in the hell do you know about the name of that mission?" Followed with the instant look of horror on his face in response to my question of what was that like. He instantly puckered up his chair, eyes darting around to avoid contact with mine, following with a sharp, barking response of, "A lot of men died on that mission, and I will not talk about it anymore, so do not ask me that again." For me personally, this spoke volumes to me and gave me the confirmation that the UFO contact was very real. I have spent my whole life around veterans from various wars, and none of them ever displayed that kind of reaction that this former sailor did in a supposedly peacetime mission. And I am talking about in comparison to other veterans who were in the worst possible horrifying combat situations imaginable. I have experienced men who instantly broke down in tears, remembering friends who were killed in horrendous ways, and even recalling some feelings of fear that they had in those situations, but none of them acted out in the way this Highjump veteran did. They all shared their experience with vivid details. They spoke with calmness and willingness, having come to grips with everything many decades later. But this one man from Operation Highjump, his look was far more intense in comparison to other combat veterans that I knew. This was a combined look of intense fear from something he experienced, an experience that he had no explanation for, the kind of intense, fearful look a person would have from experiencing something not of this world, mixed with the sharp, barking, snap-back retort, as if I had just put him in a position to break a national secrecy oath. That moment is forever burned into my memory, the way he reacted, and words can never describe it well enough. But his reaction confirmed to me that every bit of his version of events is true, despite him not giving or admitting to any of the details. His body language and tone of voice did all of that. It was bone-chilling. Now, I read that whole comment, and I don't know if it's true. I don't know. I didn't really try to find Eric Willoughby and see if he really was just a normal guy, just kind of sharing a quote, sharing an experience he had with a vet who apparently worked on Operation Highjump. But I did find it interesting that if this is true, that someone who worked on this operation would have such a visceral reaction to what essentially amounted to kind of just an Arctic expedition. Now, having said that, reading about Operation Highjump, there was some casualties. Obviously, going into the Antarctic region is difficult work. It's not easy. It's easy to get lost. The whole bit in the diaries of Admiral Byrd talking about his compass and his navigation equipment not really working. That's actually just a thing that happens to people, planes and explorers and people researching Antarctica. That is a thing that does happen when you get up there because of the being so close to the magnetic fields, and it does mess up with your navigation. So it's hard. It's easy to get lost up there, and it's just with all the different, I don't know what you call it, but when ice kind of shatters and separates and cracks, it's a very harrowing situation to be in. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that someone connected with Operation Highjump would have some pretty strong and maybe even visceral and fearful reactions to even talking about it, especially if the men did die. But having said that, if there was an alien connection, there was a Nazi connection, and there was, and this mission was more than what it seemed and was actually being used to try to find and take out a Nazi base, then yeah, you might have a little bit more of a visceral reaction to that. So I found it to be an interesting quote. Now, this battle, the Battle of Antarctica, has been rumored to be true because of the termination of, has been rumored to be the true cause of the termination of Operation Highjump, explaining why the U.S. decided to end the expedition 6 months early. Now, another thing that I find especially interesting about all these stories is the unexplainable reasons why a benevolent, peace-loving extraterrestrial, or in the Hollow Earth's case, interterrestrial, why a race of beings like this would seemingly work with and even help a group like the Nazis. Why would the Agarthans seem to welcome the Nazis into their world, potentially helping them develop flying craft as well as allowing them passage through the inner world? Now, the story I just read about maybe these ships, these UFOs firing upon Operation Highjump, Admiral Byrd, as well as Nazis, was there to not destroy anything but to kind of shoo them away, would kind of fly against the idea that they were helping the Nazis. Having said that, there are stories that I will get into on a future episode, if we do talk about the Vril and the Thule Society, about Nazis and their occult connections and using the energy and maybe even the help of inner Earth beings to help kind of create these sort of flying spaceships, these occult craft. Now, the German documentary that was translated into English that I was mentioning earlier, I will be covering that because it is an interesting documentary. It's fairly short. It's about 44 minutes. And so on the next episode that we dive into about the Hollow Earth, I'll get into a little bit of that and more of the Nazi connections with that. As well as what exactly lies in the mysterious world of Agartha, because there's a lot of stories of what the inner Earth actually consists of, how to get there. There are apparently multiple entrances into Agartha, multiple entrances into the Hollow Earth, all around the globe, and we'll be getting into what do the Agarthans look like. Now, it's a little bit of a letdown, as they have been described as Nordic, as tall, blonde, and white. So something that the Nazis would probably be pretty into if they were looking for an alien species, one that essentially is their perfect, what they would probably deem as like the perfect human, just a tall, blonde, white, fair-skinned. But, again, I don't know. The idea of tall whites being this like benevolent savior race has always struck me as fairly kind of annoying, and I don't know, just seems kind of, it's obvious. It's like, oh, of course, the saviors of the benevolent race of aliens would be tall, white, blonde, fair-skinned creatures. Again, I don't know. It is what it is. But we'll be getting into that in the next episode. So please stick around. I'll probably have this episode maybe in the next couple weeks. I want to space them out as I do have a different topic next week. But it's about 9:55, top of the hour. So that is the end of tonight's episode of Tarantulas Dream TV. I want to definitely thank everyone for tuning in tonight for the occult ties of the Nazis and the inner Earth and Operation Highjump. It's a very interesting conspiracy theory to look into. So please look into it. And also just look into Admiral Byrd. He was a very interesting person and did do a lot of explorations, true explorations. Now, before we go, I want to check the chat over here and see if there's anything else over here. Trial and Error Collective, far out. Yes, this whole conspiracy is just freaking far out. And Lobo Yolo, they're definitely evil. See, again, a lot of conspiracies about the tall whites and maybe even the Agarthans being just like fair-skinned. They just look like white folk. Like literally the pictures, I know that there's just people drawing their interpretations, but they just look, they're just white folk. I don't know. It's very weird, but we're gonna get into that. And Trial and Error Collective, thanks, Samba and friends. Well, thank you. I want to thank everyone again for tuning in. I appreciate y'all tuning in, taking the time to listen to old Samba over here as we get into some conspiracies over here on Instagram. And having said that, the show might be moving to a new platform. I know I've said this a handful of times, but at this point in time, I think I might be able to put on a better show over on a different platform. And I'm going to be putting out a little poll here on Instagram in the next couple days and see what y'all think. YouTube or Twitch? I want to do it widescreen, higher quality. The fidelity will be better. I don't know. The whole shebang-a-bang. So we'll see. But anyways, please, everyone stay safe out there. Wear a mask. Social distance if you can. And remember, it is a weird, weird world. Take care.